Transmitter device activated. Coordinates set for Earth 2.
Hello and welcome to the Earth 2 podcast, the show that navigates the pre-crisis DC Comics multiverse and celebrates the legacy of their Golden Age characters throughout the Silver and Bronze Ages of comics. I'm Steve Higgins.
I'm Caitlin Higgins.
And I'm David Steele. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. And welcome back, Steve Higgins.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for having me. Always happy to be here.
It's our pleasure. Steve is joining me this week because, as you may have guessed from last week, which was another of our epic Road to First Issue Special episodes, this week Steve and I are going to bring you issue 12 of First Issue Special, which was published on the 23rd of December 1975, so almost at Christmas. I asked Steve to join me this week because issue 12 features the blue-skinned Starman.
Woohoo!
And it's probably safe to say, there's no way around it, you and I wouldn't be pals without Starman.
Yeah, absolutely not, which is very strange to say, but it's true. You know, we met 25 years ago, practically. Maybe it is fully 25 years.
It must be around that, yeah.
Yeah. On the DC Comics message boards, talking about Starman figures, and in particular, there was a thread that I had created on the DC message boards back in the day, because DC was doing these PVC sets of the Flash family and the Justice Society and the Legion and all of these different sets. And because Starman was so popular, I was like, we need a Starman set. We need a set of all the different Starmen.
Yeah.
And I started this and was trying to get a petition going. I was going to be going to a comic convention in Chicago, which at that time was Wizard World Chicago. I guess Wizard had bought that convention.
Sure.
And I knew that the guy who was in charge of making these decisions was going to be there. And I was like, in the end, I ended up printing out
That's right.
the pages of the DC message boards to say, here's all these people that want this set. Like, can we make it happen? And during that long thread and discussion, you came into my life, Mr. Steele.
Yeah. It was on the DC Direct page, wasn't it, on the message board?
Yes.
And Steve's thread was called Support a Starman PVC Set. And we used to debate which characters we'd want to see in it. Would it be all the different Starmen, or would it include the older version of Ted? Would it include the Shade and all this sort of stuff? And I think we kind of started talking on some of the other threads as well, like be it JSA or whatever. And I remember we started emailing outside and talking about other stuff like, Doctor Who and other bits and bobs and what have you and stuff. And we've kept in touch pretty solidly ever since, I think, because the boards kind of wound up a year or two after that. I remember they changed the format of them and it just wasn't as... A lot of people didn't follow over on the shift sort of thing, and it kind of died off. I remember it being a very positive and enthusiastic sort of space, I suppose is the word you would use nowadays.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It was people expressing their love of things that they had in common, and that was something that I sorely needed at that time. I was in grad school. I was in the process of getting married because this is a story that you always tell. I did check the DC message boards on my honeymoon. And I had to pay for the privilege because it was the time when I had to go to the internet cafe at the resort that I was staying and pay for an hour to get to check the DC message boards.
I used to go to there was an Easy Everything, which is, branch of EasyJet, the airline, obviously. There was big Easy Everything internet cafe on St Vincent Street. It's now a branch of Five Guys in Glasgow. And I used to jump around on my lunch break before and after work. And for a while, it was open 24 hours. So I'd be there. There's a couple of occasions, I'm not ashamed to say, I was there at like 2:00 in the morning after being out with, my pal Stuart or whatever. And I remember you could vote for which Millennium editions DC would publish and all that sort of stuff. And there was always frenzied debate towards certain points of the month when the next DC Direct solicitations would be announced. And I remember I think the boards kind of dying off, kind of tied in with the period when DC Direct kind of basically just started bringing out lots of Superman and Batman figures. Yeah. Rather than delving into the history, which is always a fun, that turn of the century period when one month you'd get action figures of Dr. Midnight and Hourman. And the next month you might get like Red Tornado and Martian Manhunter, or, it was always, I've still got all those figures that I bought. It's crazy to think how long ago it was. It was a real buzz time, and what they were doing in the comics at that point was really good as well. This was before Dan DiDio had descended and ruined everything. But obviously there was a lot of debate about Starman, as well as on the Starman boards, were very lively. I remember that even... I've got a memory that James Robinson might have popped up once or twice. I remember Jeff Johns used to pop up on the JSA boards quite often.
Yes, he did. And when the DC boards eventually splintered, he created his own boards that I followed him to for a little while, but it wasn't the same. And I didn't. But yes, he was very active.
Yeah. Internet cafes were a thing for quite a long time. I remember the first time you came over to the UK and we were down in London and we went to an internet cafe.
Yes.
To update our blogs on MySpace.
Yeah. And so I could email my family and say, yes, I'm safe. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I went to Scotland to meet this stranger. He hasn't killed me yet.
This is all relevant to the comic, of course, listen, but I think, was it the first time you were over when there was the Doctor Who convention? Or did we see Fight Star that time, the band?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, when we were in London, we went to, was it King Lear at the Globe?
Yes, we did, yes.
Yeah.
And HMV in London, Future Heads was doing an in-store, and we saw them.
Oh, that's right.
And we also went to the Doctor Who exhibition.
That's right, yeah.
Great trip.
And I took a photograph. Steve knows what this story is going to be. We were on the London Eye, which gives you a great view of London from the Thames, including like the Houses of Parliament and down to Whitehall and the South Bank and all that. And I took a photograph of Steve standing in the London Eye. Full view of Big Ben, checking the time on his phone. Oh, glorious. Marvellous times.
And that became then our running gag of like, anytime we were then in front of a giant clock, I would look at my watch or look at my phone and he would take a picture of me in front of it. That became our running bit.
Those were the days. Eh?
All of this to say that, like, again, without Starman and without these message boards, I didn't have people in my life to talk about comics and Doctor Who with, and I wouldn't have met you, and we wouldn't be here today if not for those good old days.
Absolutely. So I think it's appropriate that you and I discuss this issue of First Issue Special, because at this point, it's the fourth Starman. Because we've had Ted Knight and we've had the two that turned up in Batman stories that we did.
Yes.
And I think we did them in one episode like years ago.
Yeah.
I should have checked. Within our first handful of episodes, we did the two Silver Age Starmen, and it's one of our most listened to episodes ever. There's the version of the character which became, or the look of him became the Starman of 1951.
Yes.
In the James Robinson series. And then there was the other one, Star-Man, who James didn't mention at all. And we've speculated in the past, maybe James didn't know about him, so didn't use him. And of course, when we're talking about James Robinson, we're referring to the Starman series that he wrote in the wake of Zero Hour that ran to, I think, 81 issues, or 81 issues?
Yeah.
Starting in 1994. Which featured, as a supporting character, and did some very interesting stuff with, the Blue Starman, who first appeared in issue 12 of First Issue Special. So now we should probably get Steve to tell us about the cover.
After all that long preamble.
Yes.
So we have the band at the top, but it is not the cigar band. It is actually kind of bone-shaped, that it goes on one end from the bullet, the line of DC Superstars, through to the other side, 30 cents, number 12, March 32413. And in between, in the white space, in between those two, it says First Issue Special in bold red letters. But not the full cigar band that normally goes across. We have the beautiful Starman logo that is blue with stars inside of it. So the cover image itself has this spaceship that has come swooping down from the upper left with its jet engines burning and firing fire behind it into this cityscape. And it's firing a laser beam of fire at a figure in the center of the image. And that figure is our main character, Starman, Michael Thomas. He is blue-skinned with red flowing hair. He has purple gloves, a white jumpsuit that trails down into trousers that turn purple again to match his gloves. And he's very powerfully raising his arms as if to dodge that laser beam. And shooting out of this medallion that is on his chest is this orange emanating glow, these ripple effect that are going out as he's attacking the spaceship with his sonic ray here. And the laser bolt from the spaceship has missed him and it has struck a building, and a chunk of the building is falling down to the street below. And it's a beautiful Joe Kubert image here. And the caption on it says, "Has he come to save the Earth or destroy it?"
Gosh. Yeah, I've often wondered if this is the Twin Towers that we're seeing here.
Oh,
It's just two very tall skyscrapers, then they seem to be in the middle of it. Looking at the bottom, there seems to be some sort of dock or harbour sort of situation. So
Yeah.
I've often wondered, who can say? Maybe Joe, maybe if a member of the Kubert family is listening, they could have a look at Joe's notes and tell us. But it's a great cover. Do you remember when you bought this issue, Steve?
It would have been during the run of Robinson's Starman series.
Yeah.
Probably closer to the end of the run. When did that wrap up? In 2000, 2001, somewhere around there?
I think it was 2001. I think I was in my flat by that point. Yeah.
Yeah. The comic bag and board that I pulled it out of today has a sticker on it that said $1.
Excellent.
And so I do think that I got it for $1 at, some
Yeah.
comic shop. Probably at that time it would have been the comic shop that I visited in Evansville, Indiana. I don't remember the name of it, though. That was like the nearest large comic shop to where I was living at that time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I kind of came to actually reading the Robinson series a bit late. I didn't start reading it properly till about issue 27, 28, I seem to remember.
Mm-hmm.
I had a year or two when I wasn't really reading comics, but I was still picking up like Green Lantern, Starman, Mystery Theatre, Starman, but not picking up Legion and Flash and Impulse, and I had to go back and get them, which is a whole big kerfuffle. But I've got a feeling I probably would have bought it fairly soon after I started reading, so it'd have been around 97, 98. I'm sure, I can't remember the specifics of where I got it. I'm guessing I would have got it from City Centre Comics. Still open in Glasgow, obviously, listeners, if you're ever in the city. It was an interesting one to get because Michael was sort of built up. Do you know what? We'll save the conversation about Michael and what he, for the James Robinson series, how he was using that after we do the story, shall we? That probably makes sense, doesn't it, listeners?
Sense.
Yeah. So, without any further ado, is that a record for the preamble? It could be. Let's see if we can get through the story a bit more quickly. So, we open very dynamic splash image. Take a drink, listeners, because there's a full moon there over a city and a harbour by the looks of it. And there's a weird sort of, looks like it's a construction site or something. And slamming into the ground in front of it is the shape of a sort of very square, very flat-looking spacecraft. And flying up on the left-hand side of the splash image, not beautifully rendered at all, it must be said, is our titular hero, is Starman, as seen on the cover, as Steve described, blue skin with flowing auburn hair, a white jumpsuit with purple leggings and gloves and gauntlets, and he seems to be gesturing as this space vehicle crashes. Now, as you would expect, for the first issue of a story featuring a new character, there is a ton of captioning.
10:58 p.m. It came hurtling out of the western sky, a brilliant blip of light on the East Coast radar screens, a golden star in the murky New York night. Afterward, the authorities would announce that a meteor had crashed in the North Bronx. For a time, that would silence the hysterics who believed they saw something else that October evening, something alien and strange. Unfortunately, for New York's peace of mind, for once, the hysterics were right. Beginning the opening chapter in the saga of a new kind of hero, Starman.
And the lettering's beautiful. It's all sort of twisty and stretchy and odd. It's a great description. Obviously, you'll see it on the socials. We then get another caption which gives us the credits for this issue.
Presented by Jerry Conway, writer-editor, Mike Vosberg and Mike Royer, artists.
Excellent. Mike Royer, good. We like him. So, turning the page into the story properly. The caption reads, Chapter 1,
The Alien Among Us.
And we see what looks like the big explosion from the spaceship crashing in the background. And our blue-skinned friend jumping to the ground. And yeah, it definitely looks like a construction site in the background. There's a fairly run-down building in this first panel, and we can see that he's being observed by three men, one of whom is kind of short, wearing a red shirt under a sort of purple suit. He's got blonde hair. He has two friends. One is wearing a sort of green suit. He's got an orange t-shirt, brown hair. And there's another guy with kind of curly, greying sort of hair, wearing a green jacket and a yellow shirt. The blonde guy in the red shirt, he's the first one to speak when he says,
Hey, Ernie, hey, you see that?
I see it, but I don't believe it. And then their friend says,
That guy must be one of them astronauticals, them spacemen the government sent to the moon.
Yeah, and we see in the foreground, we'll just call him Starman for ease of reference. He seems to be staggering. He seems to be trying to keep his balance. He's leaning against the wall with his right hand, and he's got his left hand up to the back of his head, and he just seems to be sort of struggling. And the three men who've seen him arrive walk towards him. The guy in the red shirt with the blonde hair says,
Yeah, me, I've always had a grudge against those space fellas. Ever since I read in a newspaper how that space stuff cheated folks on welfare.
Guy with the grey hair says,
Come on, let's see if Mr. Astronaut's got any money.
They move towards Starman, and the guy with the brown hair and the green suit grabs him in a sort of, that's a sort of wrestling hold, is it? Is that sort of a half Nelson or a full Nelson or something?
Yeah.
Sort of grabs him under the arms, bringing his hands up behind Starman's neck as his friend shouts,
Grab him, Ernie. Hold him tight.
to which Starman says,
Imre Naruhat.
oh gosh, what could that mean? And then he cries,
Borgedagas Klatu.
and he flips Ernie over his head and sends him flying as his pal yells,
What the? Look out, Ernie. He knows that karate stuff.
and then curly-haired, grey-haired guy says,
Don't worry, Bert. I'll stick him with my...
and he breaks off because Starman has punched him. There's a little burst of concussive force and a nice sound effect. As Starman says,
Kento Narbachi Realtaran.
and we see that Bert and Ernie's pal, what could he be called? Oscar?
Sure.
Yeah, maybe that's who it is, actually. He's only stuck a knife into Starman's chest. We can see it poking out between a couple of ribs. That's horrible.
Oh.
The first panel of page 3, little Bert goes on the offensive himself. We see him grabbing the lid off of a dustbin so you can take a drink, listeners. There's a dustbin there beside him. And he brings the lid up to strike Starman, thinking,
This guy ain't human. If I don't wipe him out, he might be so mad now he'll kill me. Gotta hit him before he...
but Starman brings his left arm back and elbows into the dustbin lid, which crunches up with a nice
Wong.
sound effect as Starman says,
Doraklata Yarare.
and Bert thinks.
Sweet mother. He's got eyes in the back of his head.
But his thoughts are interrupted as Starman whirls and with a massive
Boom.
punches him. There's a nice little burst of concussive force again. And poor Bert goes flying, but honestly, look at the pattern on those trousers. I have to make room for that on the socials. So, next panel. Things are a bit quiet. You can take a drink because we see the tipped over dustbin. There's also a fire hydrant, so you can probably take a drink for that. But we see that the knife is still sticking out of Starman's side. He pulls it out, drops it on the floor, and walks off, leaving his 3 assailants lying in the ground. Camera pulls up to a sort of higher shot. We see him walking past a building with another dustbin outside. You can take a drink if you like. And we see him casting a shadow caused by an overhead street lamp. It's on the page, top of page 4, and a caption reads,
11:04 p.m. 6 minutes after the crash.
yes, we see the crashed burning spaceship and the emergency services arriving. A bunch of firemen standing around, a few police cars arriving on the scene with their sirens blaring. In panel 2, we see a cop who looks very much like Jim Corrigan, to my eyes. Red hair with a white streak at the front, wearing a horrible checked jacket and a big green kipper tie. And he's talking to another fellow who looks a bit older, a bit heavier set, with swept back blonde hair. The guy who looks a bit like Jim Corrigan is opening the door to one of the other vehicles as this heavy-set blonde fellow says,
I might have known I'd find you here, O'Donnell. You Irish cops get about, don't you?
So O'Donnell, that's the guy that looks like Jim Corrigan. He replies, no more than you Swedish cops, Inspector Clarkson. I was in the area when I heard the squeal on the radio. What's the story?
You got me, Jack. I'm just a chief inspector. The mayor doesn't tell me anything.
The mayor is here on this, a crummy wrecked plane. And as you see they're walking towards the burning spaceship, we see some firemen standing there looking at it as Inspector Clarkson replies,
You ever see a plane that looked like that, Jack?
you see that he's smoking. Listeners, you shouldn't smoke, it's bad for you. And we also see that in the background, a very odd-looking shaped car has arrived, and a man in military uniform has got out of the car, and he's walking towards our 2 police friends, and he says,
Inspector Clarkson.
huh? Exclaims O'Donnell as the new arrival continues.
Inspector, I'm Colonel Magruder, USAF. If you don't mind, I'll take over now.
O'Donnell spins and says, you'll what? Colonel, your rank may mean something in the Pentagon, but in New York there's a thing called professional courtesy. If you... But Clarkson puts out a hand to calm his friend as Colonel Magruder replies,
Back off, mister. This is official government business. Get...
and then Clarkson interrupts them both saying,
Gentlemen, please. Jack, I told you the mayor was involved. He called me on the car radio.
Jack, looking nothing like Jim Corrigan at all, except he does, replies, I see.
Washington requested our cooperation, something about a UFO.
Well, we're doing a story about Starman and there's someone called Jack. That's nice. O'Donnell then says, it's just, I don't like military types barging around playing tin soldier.
That's tough, mister. As of now, I'm in command, so you'd better...
But then he's broken off as the spaceship explodes with a massive... And the captioning reiterates this.
11:13 p.m., and for the second time this night, a thundering explosion rocks the Bronx. As shards of metal and plastic knife through the darkness like shrapnel from 1,000 grenades.
And we see O'Donnell and Clarkson and Magruder ducking for cover as the ship explodes. O'Donnell's the first to his feet as he says, Great heaven! Never saw anything like that in all my life. Like something from a movie. Know what I mean, Clarkson? Clarkson? And while we see Magruder shaking his head as he comes to, there is no movement from Clarkson. O'Donnell moves over to his body, and we see him taking his pulse. In the background, Magruder says,
Blast! The opportunity of a lifetime, up in smoke!
As O'Donnell clenches his fist, holding his friend's wrist, as he says, he's dead.
Eh? What did you say, O'Donnell?
And we get a shot of a single tear falling from O'Donnell's eye as he replies, I said, Dave Clarkson is dead. There's a slight slow dissolve. A caption reads,
11:29 p.m. Clay's grocery store on a narrow side street 10 blocks from the crash site.
Yeah, we're inside Clay's grocery store, and a fist punches through the glass on the door with a nice little
Crash!
and hand reaches in, unlocks the door, and opens it. A bell rings.
A ring!
As the shady figure, he's a bit of a sweep to his hair, there's something embedded in his chest, or something round his neck. He opens the door, and from inside a voice cries, Who is that? Who's there? And the silhouetted figure in the doorway replies,
Kailar Torame.
and we see that the man who spoke there is a kind of thick-set chap, dark hair, with a fantastic green shirt that I'm sure Peter could pull off nicely. He's got a rifle in his hand, and he says, Don't you move, mister. I've been robbed 5 times this year, so believe me when I tell you, I'll use this gun.
Frank Clay takes a tentative step toward the stranger before him. And as he does...
Yes, the stranger, for we see it's the man from the crashed spaceship, Starman. He stands with both arms spread wide. I'm miming this for the benefit of our YouTube viewers. So, Steve, we both are. And there is a weird buzzing sound as circles of golden light start to radiate out from the medallion Starman wears around his neck. And this prompts Frank Clay to say, Merciful Mother! What? That sound! That sound! And then we see that the circles seem to be focusing themselves, and Frank's rifle lifts out of his hands as he says, My rifle! What you doing to my rifle? And then in panel 2 of page 7, we see that the rifle has vanished. Frank can barely believe it. He says, You vanished it! With that sound stuff! What sort of man are you? And as Frank Clay moves forward, we see that Starman has collapsed on the ground. His hair curling behind him on the ground with one hand raised in a sort of swoon as Frank kneels down and says, I'll be a... He passed out. Can't see him too well in this darkness. Dressed all funny. But I have a feeling this boy needs a bed more than a jail. And then he thinks to himself, if I can make myself some money off that sound gadget he's got, well, nobody says a good Samaritan's got to take a loss. And a bell rings.
A ring!
As we see Frank operating and resetting the alarm for the store. A caption appears.
Simultaneously 250,000 miles away on the surface of the moon, within a geodesic dome hidden from Earth telescopes and radar by a shielding force field. An important conversation is in progress.
Yes, listeners, take a drink. Take a massive drink because we are on the moon. I don't think we've been on the moon for a very long time. There is a golden dome on the surface of the moon, and inside we can see a number of buildings and structures, all very future retro Jerry Anderson style. Well, it looks like a lot of cars parked up as well. But as we arrive at the top of page 8, we are inside one of the structures, and the captioning continues.
And though the language spoken resembled no Earth tongue, the meaning will be all too clear.
We are inside and we see a number of people with blue skin, curled up in a fancy green chair. There's a young woman with blue skin, wearing blue boots, purple dress, long white hair. Some other men standing further away. But closer to us, there's a chap wearing a sort of green tunic with green boots, being struck by a much taller, beefier, bald blue gentleman wearing blue leggings, very billowy, very Firestorm-like, blousey, big, fluffy blue sleeves. And this chap, this bald chap, is striking the other guy in green, who, did I say, he's got red hair, he's got short red hair. He's striking him violently and saying,
Imbecilic, incompetent fool! You were to execute the traitor, not let him go!
But Master Cormac, I've already told you, he tricked me, knocked me out. I couldn't possibly have stopped him. And the other chap, the baldy guy who we now know is called Cormac, waggles a finger at the little chap saying,
His death was your responsibility, Goran, because Michael Thomas did not die. You must!
And then there's a massive sound effect as blue light emanates from Cormac's eyes and strikes poor little Goran, who yells, "Yeah!" Off camera, the devastatingly beautiful lady with the white hair says, As always, Cormac, you act deftly and decisively. We were correct to appoint you our leader for this project. You wield the star power quite well.
Who?
Says Cormac, turning his head, and he looks and sees the lady sitting in the big wooden chair as he says,
Ah, Lady Cormel. Your compliment is accepted with gratitude, milady. But always remember this, I was not appointed to leadership. I claimed it as my right.
Have it your way, Cormac. So tell us, what are your plans for the traitor, Michael Thomas?
Michael Thomas will die a most unusual and painful death, milady. To be assured of this, I have engaged the service of a mind-slaver, first guardsman of the World Stone, Turan Ka.
And we see this new arrival, Turan Ka, another fellow with blue skin, thinning hair, kind of sweeping back from a large forehead. He's very tall. He's wearing a sort of gold tunic and a gold codpiece and a gold belt with a skull where the buckle should be. He has sort of short sleeves. He's wearing red boots which come up above his knees, which are sort of tied in to keep them tight. He has a sword, a short sword in a sort of scabbard on his left thigh, and I can see like spikes coming out the top of his boots. That doesn't look very comfortable. This new arrival stands there with his arms folded and says, Command it, and it is done, Master Cormac.
I'd like a display of your strength, Guardsman Ka. That chair! Destroy it!
Yes, Master Cormac, as you command. It is done. And Turan Ka picks up the chair, and with a nice handy
Scrunch.
sound effect, he scrunches it into a smaller pile of chair, the other way of putting it. Lady Cormel is very impressed. She says, My congratulations, Master Cormac. He'll do well. Very, very well indeed. And Cormac seems to smile, and Turan Ka stands quietly as a small caption reads.
End chapter 1. Chapter 2 is next.
And we're continuing the 5th page following. We pass a few adverts, including a full-page advertisement for some DC tabloids and a full-page advertisement for Superman versus the Amazing Spider-Man. And no, listeners, I have not started work on my summary of the 96-page comic, but I'm going to do it very soon. We arrive at the top of page 10. Caption reads, Chapter 2.
From Beyond the Farthest Star.
Beyond the Farthest Star, that's in Edgar Rice Burroughs' book. I've got the Ace edition, yes. It's a sort of compilation of two novels, first published, I believe, the first one was published in 1942, but the publication of the whole thing, I think, was mid-60s. Anyway, if Chuck's listening, he'll write in and let me know. So, a caption gets us back into the story and it reads,
Portrait of a Man in Pain.
Yes, and it's a close shot of our friend Starman with his sideburns looking astonishing. He seems to be lying on a pillow. He's saying,
No, Lysa, no, we can't. Too dangerous.
And there's a little asterisk to his speech, which takes us to a little caption that reads,
Translation, Jerry.
Did we do it for the last one? I can't remember. Anyway.
No, we didn't.
Oops. Oh well, not to worry. Yes. All speech by the blue people is being translated, listeners. Isn't that nice of them? The captioning continues.
And his nightmare.
Yes, so it's worth pointing out that the panels for this page, and indeed the next few pages, are all sort of rounded off because we're in flashback territory here, as Starman is dreaming. We see an external shot of a very mid-70s sci-fi fancy building. There's a guy in a green uniform with a big skull on his belt buckle, holding a very nasty-looking rifle standing outside this building. We can see the silhouetted forms of our pal Starman and a woman called Lysa inside. The woman Lysa is saying, Michael, I won't argue any more. What the Mind Council plans is wrong, and we have to stop it. The natives of planet Earth are people, intelligent people like you and I. We can't stand by and watch Cormac and the others enslave them. At least, I can't. And she moves away with Starman, or Michael as we can call him now, reaching to try and stop her. She continues, I'm going to steal a shuttlecraft, Michael, and I'm going to escape to the Earth. Try to warn them.
Lysa, please. You'll be killed.
Then at least I'll be dying for a worthwhile cause. It's better than living like a monster, Mikhail, which is what we are. And we can see she's put on a sort of glass space helmet. We also then see that the guard standing outside has noticed that she's got this helmet on and is moving. She starts striding forward with purpose as Mikhail, or Michael, however we're going to pronounce it, cries,
Lysa, no!
We then see the guard outside dropping to a firing position, bringing up his rifle and shooting. There is a sound effect and a burst of magenta energy strikes Lysa and she throws her arms up in agony.
Lysa!
Screams Michael. We arrive at the top of page 11 and we see that she has been completely destroyed. only a little pile of dust left on the floor, with smoke curling from it. As Michael mutters to himself,
Lysa.
the camera tracks closer. He speaks a little bit louder.
Lysa.
We get an extreme close-up of him, his agonised face. We see the guard standing with a rifle, not looking too fussed, to be honest. In the next panel, Michael rushes forward, screaming. The guard replies, "Crazy fool! What are you trying to—" And Michael steps forward with a
Walk.
He punches the guard, shattering his glass helmet. There is another
Whomp.
as Michael punches the guard further, making him drop his gun and fall backwards. He grabs the guard by the neck. The guard exclaims, "You're insane! Insane!" As Michael throttles him, he says,
You killed her! Killed her! Killed her!
Then it's lucky day for the guard as Michael is suddenly struck on the back of the head. There is a fantastic
Bunt.
sound effect, and Michael can only exclaim, as we are again continued on the third page following. Past a nice advertisement for some cool gear, including the 1976 DC calendar. And at the top of page 12, we see that Michael Thomas, Starman, as we've come to know him, is lying flat on his back, and two new arrivals, other guards with weapons, standing over. It's one of them that struck Michael. The guard that shot Lysa rubs at his neck and says, "Take him away." And there's a slow dissolve. We see Michael standing in front of a table which has three people sat behind it. There is the Lady Cormel, Master Comac, and another chap who looks a bit like Wilfred Bramble, who's wearing a weird blue outfit with a sort of green furry collar, a tall blue hat with sort of green circles on it, and he's just sort of sat there. Michael stands before them with other guards. We can see some other people sitting on a sort of raised balcony area to the right, watching them all. And Master Comac is speaking.
You have been charged with plotting treason, Michael Thomas. Your co-conspirator, Lysa Jorndal, is dead. This council has found you guilty. There is nothing more to be done before we pass sentence. Have you anything to say?
And we see Michael looking very angry as he says,
I just hope you all burn in hell.
Lady Cormel leans forwards and says to Comac at this point, "He certainly is an unrepentant traitor, Master Comac."
Repentant or not, in either case, the punishment for treason is the same, Lady Cormel.
And at this, blue-skinned Wilfred Bramble guy yells,
Death! Death!
as Cormac agrees and says,
Exactly.
The first panels on page 13 are a nicely intricate series of tracking close-ups of Michael still asleep, feverishly, head on the pillow as he mutters,
Lysa.
And the captioning resumes and we go back into flashback mode. The caption reads,
Portrait of a nightmare, filled with broken bits of memory.
And we see Michael Thomas being led along by two of the blue-skinned, green-garbed guards, and he's thinking to himself,
They're going to kill me. If they do, Lysa will have died for nothing. I don't care what happens to me without her, but I can't let her death be in vain.
And with that, he drops to his right, shouldering one of the guards, and there's a fantastic
Wham!
sound effect, which is good. It's always nice to hear from George Michael and Andrew Ridgeley. Michael then stands on his left foot and kicks the other guard square in the chest. There's a fantastic
Wonk!
sound effect as the guard exclaims, "Guardsman, halt!" And he drops to the ground as well. Michael looks around quickly, thinking to himself,
I can't go anywhere with my arms shackled.
and he looks down, and we can see that one of the guard's weapons is lying on the ground. Michael quickly thinks,
The guard's energo gun. If I can angle this properly.
yeah, we see in the next panel he's managed to duck down and pick it up, and he's pointing it basically up his back. He fires the gun. In the next panel, there is that now traditional sound effect, and the gun shatters the shackles that are holding Michael in position as he says,
I did it! I'm free!
and at that, we return to the present. We see the sun coming in through a window, casting shadows through the blinds, as he's lying in a bed, rubbing his forehead and saying,
Free! I'm free!
and off camera, a voice says, "Hey, mister, you okay? Heard you shouting like you were having a bad dream or something. How you feeling now?" And we see that it's Frank Clay, and the lady with him must be his wife. She's wearing a sort of orange dress, very contemporary 70s sort of hair. That's the best way I'm putting it. You've probably seen one of the panels in the socials. She's carrying what looks like a nice, healthy bowl of soup, or something. Michael replies to Frank's inquiry,
Kintorimre?
and Frank's wife says,
What's wrong with you, Franklin? Don't you see the man don't speak English?
and at this part, this bit's great, Michael puts the index finger of his right hand up to his forehead and then says,
English? Is this English?
Frank looks astonished and says, "See that, Ruth? He does speak English after all,"
Huh?
exclaims Ruth, as Frank continues, "Man alive, have I got questions for you, like how you got that there blue skin, and why you don't bleed when you cut like normal folk. To which Ruth says,
Let him eat breakfast first, Franklin.
and we see Michael supping from the dish over the next couple of panels, as Frank says, guess sleeping for 2 whole days makes a man kinda hungry.
I guess it does.
And we get a slow dissolve.
Soon.
And we see Frank is sat in a chair smoking with his wife Ruth standing behind him. We can see their apartment's very nice, actually. The shop must make a lot of cash. Michael is leaning against a shelf. We can see some books and stuff. Can't really make out what they are, sadly. And Michael is in the process of saying,
Now you understand, Franklin Clay. We learned English so we could invade your planet. Not because our world is dying, but because my race requires conquest. Emotionally.
that a fact? Well now, Ruth, isn't this interesting?
Oh, very.
As Ruth puts a hand to her head, Frank's got to his feet, puts a hand on Michael's shoulder as he says, Ruth, why don't you see about that cake you're baking? Me and Mr. Thomas here will keep on with our little talk.
You don't believe me.
Now, Michael, I didn't say that. Wouldn't have kept you in my house if I didn't feel you needed help, and not police help at that. No, you see, I guessed you was in trouble, but I see now that what you need is a real doctor, not my wife's bean soup. And now, and we see that Michael has reached forward to open a window in Frank's apartment as Frank breaks off and says, Hey, what you doing there?
I know what Ruth is doing, Franklin. Calling your local police. You've helped me, and I'm grateful. But I can't let myself be captured. I have my sonic crystal medallion and my flyer pods. They may help me survive. For a time.
And our camera angle shifts here as if we're up on the roof of Frank's building looking down. We see Michael leaning out through the open window as he continues.
Comac and the others may not have located me yet, or they may be waiting for the right moment. If I'm to fight them, I must be free.
Hey, wait! Exclaims Frank, but Michael just jumps out the window, saying,
Which means I must say goodbye!
And he flies off. Frank can only cry, Holy Mother of Mercy! And we are continued on the third page following. Oh, let's have a look at this. Big full page advert for lots of t-shirts. One that says bull shirt. That's quite funny with the head of a bull. And looks like a Playboy bunny. There's Captain America. There's Felix the cat. There's Popeye. What do you spot, Steve?
Little Alice Cooper. Just an explosion that says boom. Class of 75.
Nice.
And that very nice looking owl with the giant eyes there. Interesting.
What's the deal here? 95 cents each. Oh wait, all designs are super glowing full colour. Imagination House, 280 Hamilton Street, Rathway, New Jersey. So, if we got any listeners in New Jersey, let's get someone to go to Hamilton Street and take a photograph. Anyway, back to the plot. Ruth walks back in from the kitchen saying,
Franklin, I called the hospital. They said,
Oh, never you mind the hospital, Ruth. We just made ourselves a big mistake. That Thomas fella, he's gone.
5 miles away as a somber police funeral draws to a close.
Yes, we can see a woman with a veil stepping into the back of a car. Jack O'Donnell helping her into the vehicle. And we can see some other mourners and a priest moving around. And there's a car parked the other side of the road. And we hear a voice say,
There's O'Donnell now.
And someone calls to Jack from the car, saying,
Sergeant O'Donnell, can I speak with you for a moment?
Who? Oh, Colonel Magruder. Jack moves forward, climbing into the back of the car, saying, I was hoping I'd never see you again, Magruder.
The feeling is mutual, but I'm afraid something's come up, O'Donnell, and you've been chosen to help.
There's a slow dissolve.
42 minutes later on the banks of the Harlem River.
See Jack and the Colonel standing at the dock. There's a big boat out in the water, a couple of other soldiers. There's another spaceship-type looking craft floating in the water. Looks very much like the one that Mikhail jumped from, which crashed at the start of the story. O'Donnell speaks first and he says, Another funny-looking plane, like the one which killed Inspector Clarkson.
It's not a plane, O'Donnell. It's some sort of orbital space shuttle. The sort of thing NASA's trying to develop.
So
we checked it, and it's empty, which means whoever piloted it has escaped. He could be an enemy agent, O'Donnell. Possibly an enemy spy.
And we see that Jack and the Colonel are being watched from above by a fellow with blue skin, wearing red boots that come up past his knees, and a gold tunic and a gold belt with a skull in the buckle. And yes, it's Turan Carr. As Carr looks down on Jack and the Colonel, he thinks, The traitor is near. I can sense his psychic pattern. He starts to fly off in the next panel. His thoughts continue. He is there, on that island city which the natives have named Manhattan. I will find him, and when I find him, the execution will be swift and sure.
And on a noisy side street in Manhattan's West 40s.
What are Manhattan's West 40s?
Like 40th Avenue, 41st, 42nd, 43rd.
Ah, okay, cool. I think it's safe to say that Manhattan's West 40s probably supported menswear at some point. Anyway. You see Michael sort of hiding in an alleyway, looking around at the people outside. We can see all sorts of little bits of normal life going on. There's a guy with a fruit stall, some kids playing on the street. Michael looks around at all of this, thinking,
Odd. I've come 3,000 light years from a world which circles a red dwarf sun. Yet the difference between my homeworld and this planet is so small as to be non-existent. Yes, the fashions are strange and the technology primitive. Still, there is a warmth here that,
And his thoughts break off because the medallion round his neck starts to, well, helpfully, Michael's thoughts continue.
My sonic crystal, glowing, warning me of approaching danger.
But his thoughts are interrupted as flying down out of nowhere and colliding with Michael on a massive
Bump.
sound effect is none other than Turan Ka. Michael can only exclaim as he goes flying into a dustbin, and we can only take a drink. The first panel, page 18. Ka has grabbed Michael by the back of the head and slams his face into the ground, saying, Michael Thomas, I am Turan Ka, first guardsman of the World Stone, and I have come to take your life. Michael twists himself round, kicks back at Ka, saying,
Then you've come on a fool's errand, guardsman. I intend to keep my life and fight for it.
Camera pulls back to the other side of the street, and we see Michael and Turan squaring up to each other, as three of the young kids who are playing across the road can only stand and watch. The young girl says,
Holy mama, do you believe this?
That was excellent, Caitlin Higgins. Thank you very much. That's a golden wrap for Caitlin Higgins for First Issue Special 12. Little boy with blonde hair and a headband says, We're seeing it, ain't we? And another chap with Bronx written on the back of his jacket says,
Brother, I'm not too sure.
Michael gets a dramatic close-up as he thinks,
A guardsman here on Earth. Then the Mind Council is serious and the threat to Earth is deadly. Mine isn't the only life which stands in the balance today. If I lose, then every man and woman on this world loses also.
And the final panel of the story shows Michael adopting an almost judo pose as he stands to square up against Turan Ka, and Michael's final thought reads,
I only pray I have the strength to do what must be done.
And then a nice jaggedy caption reads,
And so, for the moment, our story ends. If you want to see more of our heroic Starman, read this issue's letter page. And in the meantime, don't take any wooden spaceships.
And a small caption reads,
The end.
And then there's another caption. Steve is not free of caption duties yet. Another caption reads,
Next issue featuring the new gods on sale the 4th week in January.
And there we have it then, listeners. Issue 12, first issue special, the first appearance of Michael Thomas Starman, who would not be seen again until the closing pages of issue 3 of Starman, which is about the 4th published issue of the James Robinson, Tony Harris series, not published until the tail end of 1994. Thoughts then on first issue special, issue 12, Steve Higgins?
Well, it feels rather incomplete
Yes.
as a story. Obviously, the fact that it ends on that cliffhanger, it's just so much buildup and so little action. It does start with that fight sequence between Michael and the random guys on the street, but then it's all flashback and it's all his memories, and I don't know. You can really understand why this didn't go to series, I think, unfortunately.
Yeah. I was talking to Pete this morning. Hi, Pete, if you're listening, before you and I recorded this. And I was sort of saying, out of the 3 issues of first issue special, which we've covered on the show, I think this is the weakest.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And obviously, the Dr. Fate one was quite self-contained. It worked really, really well as a great sort of pilot episode issue for a series.
Yeah.
Manhunter, which also ended on a cliffhanger, had quite a lot of exposition, but did a much better job of setting everything up, I think. I thought this was okay. I would definitely want to see what happened next. But
Oh, yeah.
it's definitely the weakest of the 3, and I would agree with you. We're given quite a lot of information, all in flashback as Michael is sort of sleeping and dreaming and stuff. I suppose if it was told in a more normal linear fashion, It would flow quite well, I think, just him and...
Yeah.
We get the info dump that the blue skin people are coming to attack Earth and all this sort of stuff, and they don't want to do this, and Michael obviously just decides to defend Earth because he's avenging his girlfriend who wanted to protect us.
Yeah.
That's quite an interesting motivation.
Yeah, it's not that he really cares about Earthlings until the very, very last thought balloons, essentially. Yeah. Beyond that, it's about, I want to defy these people because they killed my gal. And that's not the best of motivations. It's very 70s. But you're absolutely right that, like, if the story had begun on their homeworld and we had started in a very linear fashion, I don't know that I would have as much of a problem with it. It's that it starts with the crash of the spaceship and then we get that in flashback, that it feels like, okay, let's rewind now, and you lose momentum.
Yeah, because it does the flashback, the passage of time doesn't really happen in a linear way. I'm not really sure how long Michael is unconscious in Frank's apartment for, because there's obviously been time to arrange the funeral.
Yeah. For
the policeman who died at the start, and that's going to take a few days at least.
Yeah. I think that Frank said something about him being out for a couple of days,
right.
Something like that. But
cool.
But yeah.
Yeah.
The art, too, I feel like is most dynamic when it's showing us the aliens and showing us their clothes and their technology and all of that cool stuff. You described that panel that started the flashback on the top of page 10. And I just love that panel. It's so dynamic, and we see the spaceship and we see the alien guard and we see the alien buildings, and it all looks so cool. And like, if that's where the story had started, gosh, it would have really just grabbed me.
Yeah.
But, instead it starts with that splash that I really have to say Michael is very poorly rendered.
Yes, it's terrible.
In that first page.
Yeah, it's not the best at all. His arms look kind of weird and his face and head look too small. It's very odd.
Yeah, got a very smushed forward face in it.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of my problem with the art all the way through. I think the character designs are phenomenal, but I think then their execution, I think sometimes the facial structures of some of the characters is just really not in fitting with the art of the rest. I think the layouts are really good, but...
Yeah, they're a little defined. I mean, I have to say, I think the flashback sort of structure, I think it works quite well. I think if it had been told in a linear fashion, it would have worked. It's an unusual way of doing it, and I think it sort of plays against itself in a way, which I think does work quite well, because it's obvious that Colonel Gruder and Jack O'Donnell are going to be set up as being recurring characters.
Yeah.
They're going to be obviously chasing or trying to shut Michael down and whatever happens and stuff. That's, the Mr. McGee to his David Banner, probably.
Yeah.
I can't help wonder that maybe Frank would come back. Are they setting the kids who are watching the fight up to, are they setting them up to be recurring characters? It's obvious, I think, that we're going to see more of Comac and Lady Cormel, because they're obviously well introduced as well. So I think if it had gone to a series, there might have been a bit of back and forth. Maybe they would have come to Earth. Maybe Michael would have gone back to them. I don't think it would have lasted very long if it had gone to a series.
Yeah.
6 or 7 issues tops, maybe Starfire did, or our old pal Stalker managed, like 4 issues.
Yeah.
The really interesting thing about this one is coming to it. I mean, we're much further away now from the issues of Starman he appeared in than they were from... some of them were roughly equidistant from where we are, from when this was published. And
true.
We should talk a little bit about what James Robinson did with him in his series. Obviously, our friend Ross is covering Starman in depth on his Opal City Confidential strand as part of Stop Let's Team Up, so we would encourage you to listen in to those. I pop up occasionally. Don't let that put you off, but bum. So Ross has always been covering the whole saga with that, but Michael's, when he's sort of seen in the Starman series in the 90s, he's being held prisoner, essentially, in a sort of carnival sort of freak show. And Jack rescues him, and he goes to stay with Ted, and Ted starts to unlock his memory. There's a really funny panel when Ted's trying to interrogate him, and Michael suddenly says, Teddy Pendergrass, lead singer of is it Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. Ted writes this down, and Michael becomes friends with Grundy, and then stuff happens, and he eventually sort of comes to and is fully sort of intact mentally and joins Jack in his trip out into space, and has quite a lot of very interesting stuff to do.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Times Past issue 28, published 22nd of January 1997, which I've checked was the day before I went to see Blur at Glasgow Barrowlands off the back of the Beetlebum single and all that was going on. I'll hold the ticket stub up for the benefit of our YouTube viewers. Don't say I don't do my research, listeners. This was a really good issue because it kind of tells you the story of what happened to Mikal after.
Yeah.
And it hints at untold stories with the Martian Manhunter and the Golden Age Green Lantern. And it shows that Michael basically went a bit disco and got into drugs and drink and dancing and all that sort of stuff that became essentially the disco Starman in a way.
Yeah. And who is it that shows up in that issue? Is it Comac or is it Turan Ka?
Yes, it is Comac, although there is mention made of how Michael defeats Turan Ka and also the Randolph twins, which looks like fun. And there's also mention of the mighty Zag. And there's a bit of chat, as we say, there's mention of Alan Scott. We see Alan Scott and Martian Manhunter, and then we learn that Michael's race are basically stopped. There's mention of the Daxamites, and then we see a Dark Star, which is quite interesting. A Dark Star called Chaser Brown. He came to our planet with anger and the need for retribution for his comrades. There we go. One thing led to many. The genocide device was employed. Chaser Brown managed to divert it, make it misfire, backfire, and their planet was blown up. So basically, Michael and Comac are the last two left. So they have a little sort of psychic battle. Oh yeah, because Ross and I did this one. I remember now.
Yeah.
So remember that panel, the double-page spread, and basically Michael wins, and he leaves the club, and we see him getting sort of jumped, and then that's the last that the Shade knows of him until he pops up, and Jack finds him in the circus.
Yeah. Turk County.
I always hoped that James might have done a mini-series with Michael, like 6 issues of his adventures.
Well, and he ended up turning up in Robinson's run of the Justice League.
That's right. So he did. And he was in Cry for Justice, wasn't he, as well?
Yeah.
Then he popped up in the Shade Maxi series that James did when the New 52 stuff was happening, but nothing in that series sort of contradicted anything from Starman, so it was quite interesting to read it as a continuation of the Starman continuity.
Yeah.
He pops up in an issue of Scooby-Doo Team Up as well, when Scoob meets some aliens and stuff. If I can find the issue, I'll post the cover and a couple of panels on the socials this week, listeners. I should probably actually try and scrape together a few other comic covers featuring Michael in his later career. I should do that as well. Because he hung about for a while, because as Steve said, he popped up in the Justice League for that brief little period that James Robinson wrote it when Mon-El and the Guardian were members, and it looked like it was going to be really, really interesting, and then it kind of fizzled out as Flashpoint sort of arrived, sadly.
Yeah.
Off the back of this one story then, would you have been keen to read more?
I think I would have given it a second issue, and it would have depended upon how the second issue took things. I think what you were just suggesting of it taking on that Incredible Hulk structure of he's traveling and he's trying to avoid the authorities, or maybe he's not traveling. Maybe he's living in this little New York neighborhood and the kids of the street are like, we got to keep him safe.
Yeah.
I think I would have dug those. I think there's just so much setup in this one story that you don't really get a feel for what the character and what the story could be. Mm-hmm. But I do like the idea that he was kind of reluctant to be a hero at first, much like Jack Knight himself was reluctant to be a hero at first, and would have liked to see him maybe become the defender of this neighborhood and the weird little guy who lives under the stoop of one of the kids' apartments or something.
Yeah.
And the kid's always bringing him food, or that would have been neat. And I think I would have liked that if the second issue had grabbed a hold of me. Mm-hmm. Purely based on this first issue, I'm just not sure.
Yeah. It's definitely the weakest. I like using my imagination based on what James Robinson did with him next, really.
Yeah.
We're a family show. We won't go into any of the details, but Comac has sort of picked something up through an indiscretion, shall we say. Mm-hmm. This being the 70s after all. But it's kind of, because you get the sense that Michael's not really operating as a superhero.
Yeah.
He's just there, and stuff would have been happening to him, and, you get the sense that he sort of becomes a bit of a novelty on the party scene, shall we say.
Yeah.
And he gets around a bit.
And that does tie into this issue in a way, because those 3 guys at the start that jump him, that was pure coincidence that he was kind of the hero of that interaction. Yeah. Because they were trying to rob him.
Yeah.
If they hadn't been trying to rob him, I feel like he still would have lashed out at them. And you'd have been kind of like, wait, don't just randomly attack people. Mm. But again, he just happens to be on the side of the good guys in that case. And I feel like that's kind of what you're saying, that he's just a superpowered dude living his life.
Yeah.
And sometimes he runs into trouble.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously does say at the end there that he's going to make his mission to sort of protect Earth. And I mean, maybe that would have been sort of part of it. I mean, one thing we must sort of say is that there's no references to any other aspect of DC continuity in this.
No.
We could speculate that this is on Earth 1. Obviously, after Crisis, after 0 Hour, all that sort of stuff becomes, kind of irrelevant. he's on whichever Earth it is that Jack Knight ends up on, or whichever continuity you like. Obviously, it's a retcon when James mentions, Martian Manhunter and Alan Scott. Mm-hmm. The cover of issue 29, I think what I'll do is I'll post a few other Mikal covers. If I can fit in images of him with Martian Manhunter and Alan Scott into the socials this week, I'll do it. But if I don't, I'm sure everyone listening to this podcast read the James Robinson Starman series anyway, and will be familiar. They won't really need me to kind of show you these panels that we're talking about. But I'll put together a few Michael covers, and we can all have a look at them and go, ooh yeah. I remember him being quite good pals with Kong Gorilla in that whole Justice League thing, and it was a big crossover with JSA at one point. If Ross continues with Michael's adventures after the end of Starman, he might talk about that, but he might not. Maybe if Shag continues, for the next 7 or 8 years with JSA in the 90s, he might get to them before too long. Maybe not, I don't know. Listeners, if you haven't read the James Robinson series, Steve and I would encourage you to read it unconditionally. We wouldn't be pals without it, so at the very least there's that.
Absolutely.
It's a very good series, and it makes does some really, really interesting stuff, Michael. In its own ways, it's very respectful to what was done with him in this first issue. So there is a text page, there's no letters page in this issue. There is a text page which kind of sets up what they're planning. Steve's going to read that to us now.
The story behind the story of stars, starships, and starmen. As far as comics are concerned, it began in 1938 when a rocket ship from the doomed planet Krypton crashed into the soil of Earth. It contained a baby, the child who grew up to be Superman, as almost everyone in the world knows. Before that famous story, spaceships and starborn people were considered the exclusive domain of science fiction writers and pulp novelists, and the word superhero had yet to be invented. But Superman made the subject respectable, and with the lightning-fast speed of a bullet in flight, a flood of heroes followed from the stars. There were mobs of additional Kryptonians created over the years, fellow heroes like Supergirl, enemies like the Phantom Zone criminals, and even animals like Krypto. And when the second generation of DC superheroes was born in the 50s and 60s, 2 members of the Justice League were born under distant skies. Hawkman as Qatar Hall of Thanagar, and John Johns, the Manhunter from Mars. Once a trend is started, it naturally tends to build until it finally reaches an ultimate exaggeration of the original. In this case, the Legion of Superheroes came into being, with 2/3 of its membership born on other worlds. In fact, the series even includes a blue-skinned heroine from a warlike world, which may or may not be the home of our Starman, since the Legion is set a millennium after our series.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that, because the Starman series draws the link between Starman and Shadowlass. That's right.
Which I thought James made up, but right here mentioned in this text.
Interesting.
Yeah. All of which brings us to today and the creation of Starman, our new alien hero. He was born in response to the resounding popularity of science fiction, which our editor/writer knows well from his 2 novels, The Midnight Dancers and Mind Ship, both available at most bookstores. And the movement of sci-fi into other media, witness the success of Space 1999 on television. We decided to mix the themes of the currently popular UFO theories with traditional superhero dynamics, and came up with this story. The name was something else again. DC's first Starman character was the cover feature in Adventure Comics 3 decades ago, and also starred in the classic Justice Society of America epics. A grand old name, as the saying goes, but not a character that we were interested in reviving.
Wow.
That's a shame. You see, despite his name, this earlier Starman had little to do with the galaxies. He was an ordinary astronomer who had devised a stellar-powered rod which could defy gravity, and he used it to fight crime. So we had Ted Knight, the original Starman, break his leg and pass his rod of power on to the Star-Spangled Kid, who now uses it in the new All-Star Comics, which you've just heard on the Earth 2 podcast.
Yeah, we've done the first couple of issues of those, and we'll be doing some more before too long.
With this, Ted Knight is temporarily retired until we know whether this series takes off. If it does, then certainly much of the credit rests with the creative team that put together this story. We've already mentioned editor-writer Jerry Conway's credentials, but readers unfamiliar with the work of Mike Vosberg might note that he's a longtime sci-fi comics fan, who is currently at work on 2 other sci-fi comics, The New Gods for the next issue of this magazine, and Starfire, an unusual lady who will be debuting in her own Sword and Science magazine later this winter. Mike Royer, of course, is Jack Kirby's inking partner of the past 4 years, who is now branching off on his own. The cover was rendered by Joe Kubert, which was a special treat for our penciler because Mike counts Kubert among his major influences. Those are the Starman in Conway's Corner, and we'd like to hear what you think of their efforts. First Issue Special is an experimental magazine, and no experiment works unless there's some feedback. It's up to you to supply the feedback. And the address to send it to is Starman, the story behind the story, National Periodical Publications, 75 Rockefeller Plaza, New York, New York, 10019. And while you scribble those notes, we'll be hard at work on First Issue Special number 13, starring The New Gods by Denny O'Neil, Jerry Conway, and Mike Vosberg. See you there.
Or not. I'm even sure if I've got that issue. I might do. Obviously, listeners, as we've established, we're not going to see Michael Thomas again this side of the crisis.
Yeah.
The next Starman, of course, to get any kind of profile will be the chap that pops up in Adventure Comics. So Ross has already covered them, and we will get to it on the Earth 2 podcast in a couple of years, I think, at the current rate that we're going. So we'll see what happens there. We'll see if when Ted pops up again, actually. That'll be interesting, following this one. So, listeners, we're dropping this in as a little insert now, recorded a couple of weeks after we recorded the bulk of our episode on issue 12 of First Issue Special, because last week, as the crow flies, what date would that have been? 23rd, 24th of July, something like that. The Flash Bad Moon Rising special arrived at FP Glasgow, and I was delighted to see that the Shade was involved. And then I picked it up and I flicked through it, and wouldn't you believe it, turning up for a few pages is none other than Michael Thomas, the Blue Starman. Isn't that right, Steve?
Yeah, I had no idea this was coming. I've not been reading The Flash, didn't know of Shade's involvement in this, and then to see a sneak preview of it on Wednesday when I was kind of like looking through, hey, here's what's coming out this week, and I'm like, what's this? That's the Shade on the cover of this Flash thing. Wait a minute, let me take a look at this. And then I looked at the sneak preview, and it had the first couple of pages, and there's Michael. And I'm like, what? We just recorded.
I know, yeah. I think Peter's a bit in huff with us for wanting to do this insert, because as far as he was concerned, he'd edited the episode and he was finished with it. But we just thought, what are the chances of Michael popping up again? Just in a comic full stop, but so close to us talking about his, his subsequent career. So yeah, he pops up for a few pages and has a nice chat with the Shade, and there's a panel that flashes back to his prehistory, and you
can even see in that panel the kids that were watching Michael about to get into the fight at the end of First Issue Special.
Yeah, that's right.
They're right there, so kind of crazy.
The issue as a whole is surprisingly well tied in to the continuity of the Jack Knight, James Robinson, Tony Harris, Peter Sneyberg Starman series. Characters from the Starman series appear, and I think, Steve and I, it's fair to say, have mixed feelings about some of that.
Agreed.
But we're not going to talk about it now. That's probably for another podcast, and we don't want to be here all night, because this is just meant to be a short insert, just pointing out that Michael has popped up again. Has a nice chat with the Shade. Hope O'Dare is there, if that means anything to anyone. Jack Knight gets a mention. It's almost like we've just missed him.
Yeah. And it mentions that Michael is a pop star. The mugger running away says, "I love your album."
Yeah, that bit's amazing. Yeah, that was very, very funny. I need some more of that. I'm honestly not sure what I think of other people using the Opal City characters and setting so strongly as this, but I'm coming down on the side of it's nice to see them. It was a very pleasant surprise, because I think I was vaguely aware that this thing was coming, but the involvement of the Starman continuity was a pleasant surprise, I think, overall.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, we would encourage you to pick this up if you were a fan of the Jack Knight Starman series, as Steve and I are, as we've discussed endlessly. I'm sure Ross will talk about this either sooner or later on Opal City Confidential. This is supposed to be a very short insert, but it's turned out to be probably longer than we went. Sorry, Pete.
Sorry, Pete.
We shall now return to Steve and I for the wind-up for this episode. Take care, folks. We will speak to you in a sec. Steve, thank you so much.
Thank you again for having me. This was a fun time. It's a difficult read because there was a lot of characters and my accent slipped quite frequently. But but it was fun. It was a lot of fun. And it's always fun to walk down memory lane with you and think about, I can't believe it's been 25 years that we've known each other.
It's mental, isn't it? It's crazy. Listeners, were you active on the DC Comics message boards? Please let us know. You can get in touch with us. You could email us at theearth2podcast@gmail.com. You could check out our socials on Facebook On Instagram, we are the Earth 2 Podcast. And on Twitter, because we still call it that, we are podcast_Earth 2. And I think it's the Earth 2 Podcast in Blue Sky. I'm not sure Peter handles that. Of course, as Peter always says, it's the number 2 across all our socials. Steve, if people want to find you in the socials, where are you?
I am Vacuum Boy 9 on Blue Sky, Insta, Threads, Twitter. That's where you can find me. Oh, and on TikTok as well. Vacuum Boy 9. Yeah,
that which reminds me of another fun story of ours when I was at work one time about 15 years ago and flicking through a copy of the Sun newspaper. There was a headline which read, Vacuum Boy, 9, loves to clean. And it was about this 9-year-old kid who was obsessed with the vacuum cleaners and hoovering. And I remember seeing it and just being like, what? What is going on? And then I keep bumping into this lighting generator sort of machinery in my job with Mad Crew, which has identified as VB9. So man, you and I being pals, it's just meant to be. It's like Bad Wolf, it's just written through time and space. Or something.
Yes.
Yeah, check out the socials this week, listeners, please, because I've managed to scrape together a few interesting bits and bobs. There'll be covers, panels. I've got the original art for the cover somewhere. I'll try and get a few Michael covers together. As I always say, if you're enjoying the show, please consider going to wherever it is you receive your podcasts and giving us a positive review, or going to our coffee page and buying Peter the price of a beverage as he attempts to edit Steve and I's conversation into something coherent and worth listening to. Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure. Nice that we were able to do this episode together. Thanks to Peter for letting us do it, letting us indulge.
Yes, thank you, Peter.
And I'm sure we'll have you back before too long.
Awesome. I look forward to it. Thanks for having me.
So, that's it for this week, folks. Take care. I've been David.
And I've been Steve.
We'll see you soon on
the Earth 2 Podcast.
Transmatter cube activated. Return coordinates set for Earth Prime.
As you would expect, for the first issue of a story featuring a new character, there is a ton of captioning.
we didn't discuss that.
Yeah, but you always do.
I should have known and just went into it. All right.
You're the Peter Watson this week. Hi, Peter, if you're listening.